Hi, I'm Lindsay, and I worked with my mentor, Dr. Megna, to develop a research paper comparing Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar and Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye to examine how race, class, and gender contribute to different possibilities of psychological recovery. So, to introduce the novels, The Bell Jar was published in 1963 and The Bluest Eye was published in 1970, and we can see that they were published around the same time frame, the 1960s and 70s. Both trace the psychological disintegration of a young woman. Esther Greenwood, the protagonist of The Bell Jar, is a white, ambitious English major who is offered the opportunity to work in New York. She struggles to choose among many mutually exclusive futures. On the other hand, Pecola Breedlove, a black girl in Ohio, becomes paralyzed by an absence of choices in an unacknowledged existence. Although both experience psychological breakdown, their outcomes differ vastly. Esther's recovery is shown to be fragile but possible, while Pecola steps into madness entirely, prompting the question of why these differences exist. Feminist literary criticism has traditionally focused exclusively on gender, treating gender, race, and other experiences of oppression as distinct categories of study. Scholars like Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gubar have revealed how women in literature are confined to archetypes like the angel and the monster. Elaine Showalter asserts in The Female Malady that female psychological distress is a social rather than individual construct. While these foundational frameworks do offer a powerful starting point, they overlook the large role that race and class play. A white feminist lens examines Esther's struggle against patriarchy, but it fails to fully account for Pecola's tragedy. My research aims to address this gap seen in present discourse. My research question is, how did the bell jar and the bluest eye construct unequal possibilities of psychological recovery, and what do these differences reveal about the limitations of a predominantly white feminist framework in accounting for race, class, and structural inequality? In my paper, I will reveal how Esther's whiteness and class privilege enable her recovery, while Pecola's blackness, poverty, and community neglect preclude any such possibilities. Central to my argument is the concept of narrative capital, which refers to the accumulated resources that allow a person to articulate their suffering, and for others to recognize that individual as worthy of attention and care. This research paper employs a qualitative comparative method to conduct a close textual analysis of both novels. I drew from three theoretical frameworks: Simone de Beauvoir's concept of woman as the other, Judith Butler's theory of gender performativity, and Kimberly Crenshaw's theory of intersectionality. The analysis also pays close attention to narrative voice, characterization, and symbolism as seen in both texts. The results of this comparative analysis reveal how Esther Greenwood's distress emerges from a pressure to conform to contradictory roles, with this paralysis embodied by the metaphorical fig tree. Each fig represents a possible future, but choosing one means sacrificing all others. Esther is expected to be a successful student, a future wife, and a socially graceful woman at the same time. It is also important to note that Plath uses first-person narration. Readers follow Esther as she gradually unravels. When she describes her mouth quirking up like a ventriloquist's dummy, readers understand her performance of femininity is compulsory, not natural. Her class privilege is what grants her access to psychiatric care. The novel's conclusion is ambiguous, but does present survival as a possibility. Conversely, Pecola Breedlove's distress emerges from impossible converging pressures of race, gender, and class. White beauty standards exclude her entirely, and she is invisible in the eyes of society. Demonstrated by her intense encounter with Mr. Jakubowski, he looks at her with a total absence of human recognition. Pecola understands that the distaste must be for her blackness. Unlike Esther, Pecola is paralyzed because of a complete lack of choices. Morrison deliberately withholds first-person narration and narrative capital from Pecola, and we observe her through Claudia. She is aided by no therapeutic interventions whatsoever. Recovery is not depicted as a possibility. Plath's use of first-person narration grants readers direct access to Esther's mind, while Morrison deliberately withholds that same access from Pecola. This difference of narrative capital is determined by race and class, mirroring how real-world systems of oppression determine whose suffering is addressed. Similarly, while Esther receives a psychiatrist, hospital care, and systematic support, Pecola encounters no interventions in any form. Institutional care is revealed to be a luxury good, with race and class determining who society deems as worth saving. In conclusion, comparing these novels leads us to draw the conclusion that recovery is not universal. Esther's privilege enables her access to care and ultimate survival. Picola's marginalization condemns her to spiral further into madness. Any feminist framework that neglects to consider race, class, and other factors is thus incomplete. Beyond literature, narrative capital determines who has credibility in medical records, courtrooms, and classrooms. Mental health access remains unequal today. Ultimately, to ask who recovers and who is equipped with the resources necessary to articulate their suffering is to confront the hierarchies of compassion that literature both reflects and reinforces. The full MLA works cited for all sources, including Gilbert and Gubar, Showalter, Fannin, as well as other secondary scholarship, can be found at the end of my full paper. Main references for this presentation include Crenshaw, de Beauvoir, Morrison, Plath, Sully, and Sunshine. I would like to thank Dr. Magna of Harvard University for her guidance throughout this research. Thank you also to the Lumiere Education Program team for this opportunity to share my work and my wonderful learning experience. And finally, thank you for watching.